Republican lawmakers in North Dakota proposed a bill that could enable Twitter and Facebook users to file lawsuits over censorship. The bill would open legal channels for North Dakota users who are censored, as well as any of their potential audience no longer able to see postings. The law would apply to websites with more than 1 million users. Some experts said the proposed bill would not have an effect. Attorney Akiva Cohen wrote on Twitter that the Federal Communications Decency Act, Section 230, overrides any state laws. Section 230 has been criticized by conservatives as a law that essentially serves as a liability shield for Twitter and Facebook. The 1996 law gives a shield to companies that moderate user-generated content. A pastor who took a picture with the so-called Q shaman says he's getting death threats, and so is his family. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on what they've gone through since the Capitol building was breached.
Man, we're going to have the greatest day.
Pastor Brian Gibson prayed with Americans in Washington a day before Congress counted the electoral votes. There, he encouraged people to vote out congressmen who don't object to potentially fraudulent results.
How many of y'all are believing that the people we elected are going to do what's right tomorrow?
Gibson says he attended President Trump's speech the next day, January 6th, but left with his wife to their hotel before the breach. Only later, they learned about the violence. Regardless, since then, Gibson says people have threatened him and his family with death over an old picture, one of him with an actor who breached the Capitol building dressed in costume. Gibson says he took the photo at a previous rally in Arizona because he thought the man's outfit was memorable. He says he had no idea what actions the man was going to take on January 6th.
People took that picture, and then they took the picture of him inside the Capitol and began to accuse me of masterminding the Capitol siege, which is insanity. I take thousands of pictures, selfies. I'm a public figure. From that point on Twitter, on Facebook, on all these social media platforms, people started finding my information, publishing it, saying, let's make this man famous. And thousands of calls, death threats started pouring in.
Now many of these threats have made it to his church campuses. Some, he says, have even called for his crucifixion. In light of the recent heavy censoring of conservatives and President Trump, the pastor says the harassment he's facing isn't just about the picture.
They were looking for a moment like this. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is a Marxist play. Comes right out of the Marxist handbook. So it's an ideological war. If they cannot control a voice, they want to silence it. And what it really shows is they're afraid of voices, like not just mine, but like the men and women of God across this nation that'll stand up and say, we don't serve you, we answer to a higher authority.
But he says he won't bow down to pressure and that he thinks it's time for Americans to come together, be reasonable, and take a strong stand for the Constitution. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
A famous YouTuber is now sparking controversy after he took down a video with a guest who's an outspoken critic of the Chinese Communist regime. Our reporter Juliet Song has the story.
A famous YouTuber is facing criticism after he removed a video about dumplings. In it, he invited a guest onto the show.
Today, Uncle Roger gonna watch this video. Epic curious how to make every dumpling. And I have special guest today. He knows so much about dumpling and he gonna react with me. Please welcome nephew Mike from Strictly Dumpling.
Both built their fame around food and have more than 3 million fans on YouTube. Meanwhile, Chen is an outspoken critic of the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP. He has been very vocal about Beijing's persecution of Christians, Uyghurs, and Falun Gong practitioners. Uncle Roger posted the video on his YouTube channel this Monday, but he removed the video the next day and wrote an apology to his Chinese fans on social media platform Weibo. In it, he says, "I realize the video has created a negative social impact." To which Mike Chen responded,
I get why he did it. I don't hold any animosity towards him because I understand the pressure he would feel if he really wants to have a market over in the mainland. But I did feel like it was a little too much what he wrote.
Chen is referring to the part in the statement where Uncle Roger said he wasn't aware of Chen's political thoughts and incorrect comments about China in the past.
You want to know why running on the treadmill 7 days a week doesn't work for you when you're trying to lose weight? Because it never has. And I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. Cardio actually burns calories usually in the form of carbs in the bloodstream that are then replaced with the very next meal that you eat and stored as more fat. This is why when you even eat low-calorie foods or run for an hour a day, it seems like you get softer, but you don't actually lose any weight. And this is one of the biggest reasons why most weight loss attempts fail within the first 3 weeks. I don't do an hour of cardio. I have never done an hour of cardio in the past 5-10 years, and I stay sub 10% body fat year round. Well, you could say, well, I have a couple injuries and I can't lift heavy. You don't have to lift heavy to get in shape. You can say, well, I can't stick to a diet because I'm always hungry all the time. You can follow diets where you're not hungry and you're eating your favorite foods. You can say, I'm not in shape because I don't know who to listen to. I don't know even what to do. Well, here's your chance to put all those myths to rest and learn exactly what you need to do to get in shape, depending on what shape you're in right now and what shape you
past. He also hopes his Chinese fans can, quote, give Uncle Roger, who just entered China, a chance to improve.
He could have just said, okay, he didn't agree with my viewpoints and leave it at that. But to go the extra mile, I felt was a little too much effort to try to appease the CCP or the crowds, or the people inside mainland China who had a problem with me being on his show.
Chen has been raising awareness about human rights issues in China. In an Instagram post last June, he talked about China's Tiananmen Square massacre. On June 3, 1989, the CCP sent tanks to crush the pro-democracy movement at Tiananmen Square. Their troops fired at unarmed protesters. Chen adds that he's critical of the regime, not the Chinese people.
China is beautiful. China has a long-standing history. It has beautiful culture. It's based on truthfulness. It's based on spirituality. It's based on compassion. And the Chinese people embodies those characteristics.
He says the regime has been pushing the propaganda that if you don't have the CCP, then you don't have China.
Because of that indoctrination, people still think to this day, a lot of people inside China, that, okay, if you insult the CCP, you're insulting Chinese people, you're insulting China, which is not true at all.
Chen says the CCP ruined many people's lives, but those who speak out risk being persecuted, and he's just trying to give a voice to those who desperately need it. Some internet users criticized Uncle Roger's decision under his tweet. NTD reached out to him for comment but didn't get a response before airtime. Juliet Song, NTD News.
A China analyst is warning Americans to be cautious of some tactics cropping up in domestic politics. This is because they mirror political campaigns in communist China. NTD's Penny Zhou has more.
In China's political movements, the judicial system exists only in name. If the Communist Party wants to start a campaign against a certain group, a label from the state-controlled media is enough to basically convict a group of people.
For example, during the so-called anti-rightist campaign, the CCP labeled people as rightists, or in the Cultural Revolution, they label you as a counter-revolutionary.
Even today, many Chinese dissidents are convicted for inciting subversion just because their political opinions differ from the Chinese Communist Party. A China affairs analyst said similar tactics are seen in the U.S. For some, there's no difference between the people who actually committed violence in the U.S. Capitol and those who merely voted for Trump for his policies.
The essence is the same, that is, you are guilty for your words and opinions. The judiciary system and due process are gone. The media took their place to convict a huge group of people. Once they are labeled, the whole society will be mobilized to suppress this group of people politically and siege and persecute them in their daily lives. Now in the United States, we are already seeing such phenomena. People who support Trump get kicked off the plane. They are fired by their own companies.
He said lawmakers and the media are also treating the Capitol unrest differently than the Black Lives Matter unrest during the summer. He said judging people of different identities differently when they both commit the same actions is an idea originally from communism. In communism, people are divided into the oppressors and the oppressed, and the two are believed to be forever in conflict.
In China and the Soviet Union, what they used is social class, separating the poor from the rich, and then creating a division between these two groups of people, as if the Communist Party represented the interests of the poor, and the rich are naturally guilty and bear original sin.
Tang says oppressed people are seen in communist ideology as naturally righteous no matter what actions they take.
Whether you go to smash and grab, you set things on fire, or do a lot of other bad things, you are still righteous because they are not judging you by your behaviors, whether it's good or bad, but your social identity, which replaced traditional values about right and wrong.
He said Americans should be cautious of this line of thinking and not turn to strategies from communist movements. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.